My girlfriend started hiding her phone like it was a loaded weapon, and then she told me it was because I made her nervous. That was the twist. Not that she was suddenly private, not that she had passwords and angles and little flinches when a screen lit up. People change. Stress happens. Boundaries exist. I could have lived with that. It was the way she blamed me for noticing. If you enjoy real relationship stories with a clear ending, consider subscribing. Now let me walk you through how a single message tore the blindfold off and forced me to choose myself. Her name was Alyssa. We had been together a little under 3 years, long enough that our lives had interlocked in all the quiet ways. She had a drawer at my place that stopped being a drawer and became hers. I had a toothbrush at hers. We had shared grocery lists, shared friends, shared the same Sunday routine where we would pretend we were productive, and then end up on the couch with food we swore was just a snack. Alyssa was warm in public. The kind of person who touched your arm when she laughed and leaned into you when you stood in line. I liked that about her. It made me feel chosen. At the beginning, her attention was steady and generous. She would send me photos of whatever she was doing, a weird cloud, a dog on the street, her coffee with too much foam. Not because I demanded it, but because she wanted to pull me into her day. I met her right after I moved to the city for work. I was trying to build something stable for myself. My last relationship before Alyssa had ended with me feeling like I was constantly auditioning for love. With Alyssa, it felt calmer. I could breathe. Her ex was part of the story from the start, but only as a background detail. His name was Ethan. She mentioned him the way people mention a former job. Yeah, that happened. It taught me things. It ended. I did not ask for a lot of specifics because I did not want to dig into a past that was not mine. What I knew was enough. They dated for a couple years. It ended badly. She said he had been immature. She said he did not appreciate her. She said he always had a way of turning things around and making her feel guilty. When she told me those things, I believed her. And I filed Ethan away as a closed chapter. For a long time, that was true. Then the phone thing started. It began as little movements that were easy to ignore. She would flip her screen down when she set it on a table. She would angle it away when she typed. She would keep it in her pocket while we watched a movie instead of leaving it on the coffee table the way she used to. I did not comment at first. I told myself people get tired of being reachable. I told myself she was dealing with work stress. She was, genuinely. Her job had been pushing deadlines, and she had a manager who thought urgency was a personality trait. Some nights she came home looking like she had been carrying a heavy bag all day, so I gave her space. But then she started taking her phone to the bathroom every single time, even when she just needed to wash her hands. She would bring it to the kitchen for a 30-second trip to grab water. She would check it face down on her lap at restaurants. And when I glanced over, she would turn her body like a shield. The first time I brought it up, I tried to make it light. I asked if everything was okay. I asked if she was dealing with something she wanted to talk about. I was not accusing her. I was checking in. Her response was a sharp little laugh and a statement that made my stomach sink. She said I was acting weird. She said it was exhausting to be watched. She said she felt like I would start a fight over anything. That was the first time she used my feelings as evidence that I was the problem. I stepped back immediately. I apologized for making her feel monitored. I told her I trusted her. I told myself I'd done the right thing by not escalating. The changes kept piling up. She started answering texts with the phone pressed close to her chest, thumbs moving fast, eyes flicking up to see if I was looking. She would go silent for a few minutes, and then rejoin the conversation with a brightness that felt pasted on. At night, she started sleeping with her phone under her pillow or tucked between the mattress and the wall. It sounds ridiculous when I say it like that, but that is what she did. Once, her screen lit up in the dark, and I saw a name I did not recognize. She noticed my eyes, rolled over, and said it was a coworker asking about a schedule. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her for a while, because believing her was easier than what the other option would mean. But my body started reacting before my mind caught up. I would feel my chest tighten when her phone buzzed. I would feel a little spike of panic when she smiled at something on the screen and then put it away. I hated that feeling. It made me feel small. It made me feel like I was becoming the kind of man I promised myself I would never become. So I tried to fix myself. I went back to the basics. I started making an effort not to look at her phone at all. I focused on my work, my gym, my sleep. I told myself she deserved trust until she gave me a real reason not to. Then came the second twist. She started using the phrase, "because you are nervous." If I asked what time she would be home, "because you are nervous." If I asked who she was texting at midnight, "because you are nervous." If I noticed she left the room to take a call, "because you are nervous." It became her main defense. Not explaining, not reassuring, not being transparent in a healthy way, just labeling me. And the more she said it, the more it worked, because it made me ashamed of my own instincts. One Friday, she came over after work, and we planned a quiet night. Pizza, movie, early sleep. She had a glass of wine and seemed relaxed for the first time in weeks. She laughed at the movie. She leaned into me. She kissed my shoulder. It felt like the old version of us. My brain tried to close the case right there. Then her phone buzzed. She did not just glance at it. She snapped upright. She grabbed it like it was going to fly away. She walked to the hallway and stared at the screen with her back turned. That is when I realized I was not imagining the intensity. I was not creating it. She was reacting. I said her name, not loud, just enough to remind her I was there. She turned halfway and said it was nothing. I asked if everything was okay. She snapped again. She told me to stop. She told me I was ruining a good night. She said I always did this. And I knew what she meant by this. She meant noticing. I went quiet after that. I felt like if I said one more word, I would become the villain in her story. She went to the bathroom with her phone and stayed in there longer than normal. When she came back out, she kissed my forehead and told me I should not overthink. I stared at the ceiling that night while she slept. I did not want to be right about what I feared, but I could not keep pretending my gut was broken. At some point, if you feel the same pain over and over, it stops being anxiety and starts being information. The next day, Saturday, we had plans to meet friends in the afternoon. Alyssa said she needed to run errands first. She left in the morning, phone glued to her palm like it was attached. Around noon, I got a message from a number I did not have saved. It was a screenshot. Under it, a short line. "You know she's talking to her ex again, right?" No question marks, no emoji, just blunt. My first reaction was to stare at it like it was a prank. My second reaction was to check the name at the top of the screenshot. It was Ethan. The screenshot showed a thread between Alyssa and Ethan. The messages were not innocent, not technically explicit, but intimate in the way that matters. He wrote that he missed her. She wrote that she had been thinking about him too. He wrote that he should not have let things end. She wrote that some things never really end. And then there was the line that made my throat go dry. He asked if she was still with me. She replied yes, but it is complicated. That was the moment something inside me hardened. Not because I was shocked that an ex could exist. Not because I thought she was a robot who never had impulses. But because she had been using my discomfort as a weapon while she fed intimacy to someone else behind my back. I looked at the number again and realized I had a clue. The message was from her friend, Lauren. I knew Lauren. I had met her a handful of times. She was the blunt one in Alyssa's group, the one who always asked direct questions at dinners. She did not flirt, did not fish for attention. She just watched people. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I did not want to get pulled into some group drama. I did not want to respond emotionally. But I needed one thing, and I needed it now. I asked why she was telling me. She responded quickly, like she had been waiting. She said she could not watch Alyssa do this again. She said Ethan had been circling for weeks. She said Alyssa kept insisting it was harmless and that I would never know. She said she was tired of seeing me treated like the backup plan. Then she sent another screenshot. It was a message from Alyssa to Lauren saying, "Stop being dramatic. He is just someone who understands me." I read that sentence 10 times. Someone who understands me. The line people use when they want to justify emotional cheating without using the word cheating. I sat on my couch and felt a strange calm settle over me. Not peace, more like clarity. A door closing. Alyssa came back an hour later like nothing happened. She walked into my place with a bag of groceries and kissed me on the cheek. Her phone buzzed in her hand as she did it. She watched my eyes. She saw that I noticed. Her face flickered. She asked what was wrong. I told her we needed to talk. She sighed like I was scheduling an inconvenient meeting. She put the groceries down and leaned against the counter with her arms crossed, the posture of someone preparing to win an argument. I asked her if she had been talking to Ethan. Her eyes widened just slightly. Then she smoothed her expression into something practiced. She asked why I would ask that. I told her I knew. She took a step forward and demanded to know who told me. That was her first move. Not denial. Not concern about how it looked. Not empathy. Just hunting the leak. I said it did not matter who. I asked her again, yes or no. She inhaled, then let it out slow. She said yes, but it was not what I was thinking. I asked what it was then. She said he had reached out. She said he was going through a hard time. She said he needed someone to talk to. She said she was just being kind. I asked why she did not tell me. She said, "Because you get nervous." She said she did not want to fight. She said I would not understand. Hearing her use that phrase in that moment made me almost laugh. I asked if telling him she missed him was being kind. Her head snapped up. The mask slipped. She asked if I looked through her phone. I said no. I said someone sent me screenshots. I said I did not need to touch her phone to know what she wrote. She froze. Then her face hardened in a way I had never seen. Her kindness vanished. What remained was irritation, like I had failed a test. She asked if I was going to believe gossip over her. I asked if the screenshots were fake. She opened her mouth, closed it, then said those were taken out of context. I asked what context made yes, but it is complicated acceptable. She started pacing. She accused me of turning it into a big thing. She said I was dramatic. She was allowed to have friends. She said Ethan was not even her type anymore. A lot of things. Not once did she say, "I am sorry." Not once did she say, "I crossed a line." Not once did she say, "I can see why you would feel hurt." Instead, she circled back to the same complaint. She said I made her feel like she had to hide things. I looked at her and realized the conversation had a trap built into it. If I accepted her explanation, I would be admitting that my standards were unreasonable. If I pushed back, I would be proving that I was the controlling boyfriend she painted me as. Either way, she kept her innocence and I carried the shame. That is when I stopped arguing and started observing. I asked her one question. I asked if she would be okay with me texting an ex the way she texted Ethan. She said that was different. I asked how. She said because she knew my exes were crazy. She said because she knew I would leave her if I had the chance. She said because she did not trust other women around me. That was the moment the hypocrisy became undeniable. She did not want trust. She wanted freedom without accountability. She wanted the right to keep doors open while demanding that I keep mine sealed. I told her I was done. She blinked like she did not hear me. I said it again. I said we were done. She laughed, a short sound like she thought it was a threat I could not follow through on. Then she switched tactics. She moved closer and tried to soften her voice. She told me she loved me. She told me she would block him. She told me it was stupid and she did not mean it. She told me she had been feeling lonely lately and Ethan just knew how to talk to her. She told me work had been overwhelming. She told me she was sorry if it looked bad. Sorry if it looked bad. That phrase is its own kind of confession. It does not apologize for the act. It apologizes for the optics. I told her I was not interested in being the man she settled for while she chased the attention she actually wanted. I told her I was not going to police her phone for the rest of my life. I told her that if our relationship required surveillance to survive, it was already dead. She started crying then. Real tears. Messy. She slid down the cabinet and put her face in her hands. For a second, my reflex was to comfort her. That is what I had always done. When she cried, I fixed. I soothed. I smoothed the rough edges. But I remembered the weeks of her treating my instincts like a character flaw. I remembered her calling me nervous like it was an insult. I remembered her hiding her screen and making me feel guilty for noticing. So I did not fix it. I told her she needed to leave. She looked up, shocked, like she had expected me to fold. She asked where she was supposed to go. I said her place. I said a friend. I said anywhere but here. She stood slowly and wiped her face, then grabbed her bag like she was in a fog. She walked toward the door, then turned around as if she wanted to say something dramatic to reset the narrative. Instead, she asked again who told me. That is when I knew I had made the right call. Because even at the edge of the breakup, her focus was still on protecting herself from consequences, not on the damage she caused. After she left, I sat alone and felt the delayed impact hit like a wave. My hands shook. My stomach felt hollow. I walked through my apartment and noticed all the little pieces of her life that had blended into mine. Her hoodie on a chair, her shampoo in my shower, her favorite mug in my sink. It would have been easy to call her back, easy to accept the promise to block him, easy to convince myself that it was a near miss and not a pattern. But Lauren had said something that stuck with me. She could not watch Alyssa do this again. Again means it happened before. I texted Lauren one more time. I thanked her. I asked what she meant by again. She told me the story in a few lines. She said Alyssa had dated someone after Ethan, a guy who was decent and patient. She said Ethan would pop back up whenever Alyssa seemed happy. She said Alyssa would insist she was just being friendly. She said the guy would get uncomfortable. She said Alyssa would call him insecure. She said the relationship would break under the weight of constant doubt. Then Alyssa would run back to Ethan for comfort. I read those lines and felt something like grief, not just for what happened, but for the part of me that had believed I was special enough to change her pattern. I spent that night cleaning my apartment like a man trying to scrub a memory off the walls. I put her things in a box. I did not throw them around. I did not rage. I just moved with a quiet purpose. The next morning, she texted me like the breakup was negotiable. She said we should talk when I calmed down. She said she could not believe I would throw away years over a few texts. She said I was proving her point about me being nervous and controlling. I did not respond. An hour later, she called. I let it ring out. She called again. I did not answer. Then the messages changed. She said she was sorry. She said she missed me. She said she was at her place and she felt empty. She said she would do anything. I still did not respond. It is a strange thing, realizing that you can love someone and still choose not to re-enter the cycle. Love is not a permission slip for disrespect. Love does not cancel boundaries. By the afternoon, she showed up at my door. I did not open it. She knocked harder, then softer. She said my name. She said, please. She said we could fix it. I stood behind the door and felt my heart slam against my ribs. My brain tried to bargain with me. It tried to replay the good moments, the warmth, the comfort. It tried to make the choice feel cruel. But then I remembered what my life had felt like lately. The tension, the self-doubt, the shame of my own instincts, the way I had been shrinking to avoid being labeled. I told her through the door that it was over. I told her I would leave the box of her things outside later. I told her not to come back. There was a long silence. Then she said something that clarified everything. She said I was just like Ethan, always making her feel like she was wrong. I almost laughed again, not because it was funny, but because it was the same script. Ethan made her feel guilty. I made her feel guilty. Everyone made her feel guilty. She was always the victim, always misunderstood, always justified. In that moment, I did not feel anger. I felt relief, because it was never about my nerves. It was never about my tone. It was never about how perfectly I trusted her. It was about her needing a villain so she could keep the thrill of secret attention without owning the cost. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade. Then I sat down on the floor with my back against the door and let myself breathe. The days after were ugly in a quiet way. I would reach for my phone to text her something small and then remember. I would walk past a restaurant we liked and feel a punch of nostalgia. I would wake up and for a second forget, then remember and feel the hollow drop in my chest. But every time I remembered the screenshots, I felt my spine return. A week later, I ran into a mutual friend at a coffee shop. He asked how Alyssa was doing. I said we broke up. He looked surprised. He said Alyssa told everyone we were on a break because I was being controlling about her friends. I nodded, because of course she did. I did not correct him. I did not defend myself. I did not fight for the version of the story where I was the reasonable one. I realized that anyone who mattered would see me over time. Anyone who only listened to her narrative was not my problem. That night, I blocked Alyssa, not as revenge, as closure. I also blocked Ethan's number even though he had never contacted me, because I did not want any more threads connecting me to that triangle. A month later, Lauren texted me again, a short message. She said you were right to leave. She said Alyssa was back with Ethan. She said she was acting like it was destiny. I stared at that message and felt the last lingering doubt dissolve. There is a specific kind of pain in realizing you were not paranoid. You were not insecure. You were not nervous for no reason. You were paying attention to your own life. I still think about Alyssa sometimes, not with hatred, but with a quiet sadness. I hope she grows up one day. I hope she learns that intimacy is not a toy and trust is not a leash. I hope she learns before she burns every bridge. But I'm not waiting around to be collateral damage while she learns. The biggest lesson I took from it was simple. When someone tells you that your discomfort is the problem, pay attention. Sometimes they are right and you need to heal old wounds. But sometimes they are using your empathy as cover. Sometimes they are training you to ignore your own instincts. I will never do that again.